You ever wonder what's really going on in an examiner's head when they're marking your GCSE biology paper? Well, today we're going behind the scenes. We're not just going to answer a question, we're going to crack the code of the official mark scheme to see exactly how every single point is won or lost. Okay, let's dive in. So, what we've got here are the actual official documents, the higher tier question paper, and the final mark scheme, straight from AQA. This is our chance to get a real insider's view, to see the tiny details that can make the difference between a good answer and a perfect one. Here's our game plan. First, we'll get a feel for the exam itself. Then, we're going to tear apart this big 10-mark question on peat bogs, piece by piece. We'll look at a tricky explanation, then some rapid-fire knowledge questions, and a final part that connects it all to climate change. And to finish, we'll wrap it all up into a handy examiner's checklist. All right, let's jump right in. We're going to peel back the curtain on the official marking process to see exactly how these questions are designed and how to beat them. So, we're zoning in on question 2 from the June 2024 AQA GCSE Biology Paper 2, and this is a big deal. It's a hefty 10-mark question, which is a pretty significant slice of your total grade. It's all about ecology and the carbon cycle, and it's all focused on one specific environment, peat bogs. Okay, so first things first. What information does the student actually get at the start of the question? This stuff is the foundation for everything that comes next. So the paper gives you this diagram of a peat bog. Pretty straightforward, right? You've got the living plants up top in layer A, and then this layer B underneath. Every single thing we're about to answer ties directly back to this picture. And here's the really critical info they give you about layer B. These 4 points, they're not just fluff. They are the absolute keys you need to unlock the marks. Pay close attention to these two: low pH and very little oxygen. They're going to be important. All right, time to tackle the first part. This is a 3-marker, which means you can't just throw out a single fact. You've got to build a proper logical argument. So, the question is, explain why most of the dead remains of plants in layer B do not decay. 3 marks are up for grabs, so we need 3 solid connected points to make our case. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The official mark scheme actually gives you 2 completely different ways to get full marks. You could go down the oxygen pathway. There's no oxygen for respiration, so the microorganisms doing the decay can't release any energy. Or you could take the pH route. The low pH wrecks the enzymes in those decomposers, so the chemical reactions of decay just stop. Either path gets you all 3 marks. And this slide, this is why we're doing this. It shows you just how precise you need to be. An examiner would not accept you talking about respiration in the dead plants. It's the microorganisms that do the work. They'd also cross out energy produced, because in science, energy is released, not created. But they would let you get away with low pH reduces enzyme activity instead of the stronger term denatures. See? The tiny details matter. Okay, let's switch gears. The next few parts are way faster. They're just quick 1-mark knowledge checks designed to see if you know your stuff and can read the data. All right, question 2.2 is all about biomass transfer. They tell you the moss produces 340 grams per meter squared per year. The question is, how much of that actually ends up as biomass in the things that eat it? And the answer, straight from the mark scheme, is 34. This is just a classic test of that 10% rule for biomass transfer. A simple bit of math, and that's 1 mark in the bag. Next up, question 2.3. The sundew plant snacks on insects to get phosphates. The question is, what essential substance does it need those phosphates to build? Yep, the answer is just DNA. It's that phosphate group in the DNA backbone that they're looking for. A simple recall question for a simple mark. And the last of our quickfire round, 2.4. The sundew also gets nitrogen from those insects. What does it build with that? Protein. Simple as that. Nitrogen is the key ingredient in amino acids, and amino acids build proteins. Boom. Another straightforward mark. Okay, now for the grand finale of this question. This is the big one, worth 4 whole marks. And it's where we connect the biology of this little peat bog to, well, the entire planet. So to set the scene for this last part, they show you this image and tell you that people dig up peat for fuel and compost. This action, this destruction of the bog, is what the whole question is about. So here it is. Explain how the destruction of peat bogs and the use of peat affects the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere. 4 marks on the table here, so we need 4 distinct scientific points.
So how do you get those 4 marks? Well, the mark scheme gives you a super clear roadmap. First, you've got to state the big picture effect. The temperature increases. Simple. But why? Point 2, because carbon dioxide is released. Point 3, you get another mark for saying how it's released. From burning the peat or letting it decay. And for the final point, you need to name that other important gas that comes out of the bog, methane.
Now this is absolutely fascinating. Check this out. The mark scheme says global warming is fine instead of increase in temperature. But if you just write greenhouse gases, you get nothing. 0. Why? Because it's not specific enough. You have to name carbon dioxide or methane and link it to the temperature change. You can also snag a mark by pointing out that with the bog gone, there are fewer plants to absorb CO2. It just goes to show how important it is to be precise. Okay, so we've pulled apart that whole 10-mark question. What's the big takeaway from all this? What should be on our checklist when we're getting ready for these exams? So what's the one thing you should take away from all this? It's that precision is absolutely everything. It's not just about knowing the science. It's about saying it in the exact way the examiner wants to hear it. It's energy released, not produced. It's naming carbon dioxide specifically, not just waving your hands and saying greenhouse gases. That kind of specific, unambiguous language is the key to unlocking the top marks. And that's a wrap on our deep dive. We've seen the logic, the different pathways to getting the marks, and just how much precision matters. So I'll leave you with this. Now that you've had a peek inside the examiner's playbook, what are you going to do differently when you practice?